is.
There we go. That's it. All right, Dave, I am going to let you kick it off, the first class about mindfulness in this month's series.
And we just made it so complicated, just like that.
I know. All right, I will be back and I will let you take it from here.
All right, thank you. Well, hello, everybody. I see all sorts of squares. It's good to be back. It's been a year since I've been here. And let's see, let's see. Oops, I gotta let some more people in here. Yeah, you can take yourself off. Well, you can put your video on. I'd love to see some of you. See if I recognize anybody from a year ago. How are you? Good to see you. Were you here last year?
I was not.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be hitting some of the things that I did last year. Okay, I'm letting people in. Hi, Sherry. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good to see you. And there's Amy. Hi, Amy. I have just been started doing talks again in person, and it's actually been kind of entertaining. Everybody has legs, you know. On Zoom, nobody has legs, but you know, at the Clifford Stills Museum, we had Stillness in the Galleries last Saturday, and there were about 60 people showed up. So a lot of people interested in this. Well, I'm going to ask a few questions real quick. And because I'm going to, let's pick on Amy. Amy, how is your life complicated?
Well, I have 2 children that may get complicated every day.
Okay.
But also very fun.
All right. And Sherry, what's going on?
Work, family, external family.
Yeah.
Very busy.
Okay. Well, it's without without question, our lives have gotten much more complicated. And as much as I love Zoom, it actually made things a little more complicated for me. I have to periodically, I go on retreats. And in the 3rd week of a retreat, we take all the screens away. No video, no iPad, no computer, no iPhone. And oh my gosh, I have the worst withdrawal you've ever imagined. But at the same time, the younger people, it's 10 times worse for them. They're so used to checking the phones and the videos and this and that. So a little bit about simplicity. I started writing my notes on what I was going to say in this class and started laughing because about 16 pages into my notes, I said, this is not simple at all. This is getting more complicated. And I went back to basics. Working with, let's see here, excuse me, I left someone in here. One of the things that I have been working with on myself, and I was just talking to Jesse about this, is how do I simplify my own life? And my mind is always going. I have a mind that, oh my gosh, it thinks. I retired recently and I built ponds and waterfalls. And so all of a sudden I'm getting all these calls for consulting, and next thing you know, there's Zoom calls from that. It's one of those things that I enjoy it. I've done it for 25 years. I know this stuff like the back of my hand. And so in that respect, it's pretty simple. But it also is very time consuming, and it also occupies a lot of my mind. So one of the things we talked about in mindfulness is, what is our minds up to? Are we complicating our lives by having our minds just too busy? And the graph that I came up with when I was doing my notes is that we have our past that's already done, and we have a future which isn't here yet, but sandwiched in between those two is the present moment. And surprisingly enough, the present moment, since nothing has, nothing's happened yet, so to speak, is the simplest place of all. We can always come back to the present moment. It's always there. It never goes away. It's always the present moment. And so the skills to be able to bring our mind back to this moment, unfolding exactly as it is about the simplest place we can get. That's the good news. The bad news is that that's really difficult to do. It's like a pendulum that's swinging from the past into the future, back into the past. And at the bottom of that swing is that thing called the present moment. I might glimpse it as the pendulum goes by with my mind, but at the same time, we do have some tools that we're going to use and actually reintroduce to you about how to come back to this thing called the present moment. Usually when I'm doing the jobs and work, I'm totally up in my head. I have got to sit there and get a lot of stuff done. I'm letting a few more people in. Look at this. This is the first time I've ever been simultaneously speaking and letting people in. That's kind of fun, you guys. It's not simple, but it's working. And hi, Victor, how are you? And so how do you get to this thing called the present moment? If I'm up in my head quite a bit, how do I actually get to synchronize my mind and body back in this moment? Now, for 2,500 years, they've known that the situation evolves, and they've come up with many techniques over the thousands of years for us to be able to sit there and notice what we're thinking and go, thinking, and you can label it, and then replace our mind back on something in the present moment. And the most trustworthy part of that present moment is our bodies. Last year when we were talking about it, I was using our breath quite a bit, but we actually had one of your members say that the breath was actually a little triggering for them, that it was causing a little anxiousness. And so we shifted that and just did all the various sensations of having a body. And I don't see people, if there's any questions, by the way, we're going to have a question and answer at the end, but be totally open to raising your hand and asking a question during the course of this. So, how many of you have a meditation practice? Just out of, I can't say show of hands. I just see several, 4 or 5 faces on of the people here. All right, Amy, describe what your practice is a little bit.
Well, I think mine, I kind of said, I sort of have one, because when I go to bed at night, if I can't turn my head off,
Okay.
then I just start kind of, I start with my feet, and I just kind of try to put every body part to sleep. So I start with my toes, and then after I say, my toes are asleep, and I kind of just work my way all the way up. And after I put something to sleep, I'm not allowed to move it. And I've done this for, I don't know, 30 years, and I have yet to ever get to my head, because I usually fall asleep around my waist.
Okay.
So that works.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that. Yeah, it's a body scan. Sherry, you had raised your hand on your practice.
Well, usually for my meditation, first thing in the morning, I try to block out all, like you said, turn off my devices. I open up a book and I read till I find something that applies to me. Then I stop. Then I think about how that portion that I just read, how that can impact my life for today.
Brilliant.
So that's what I do.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Victor, your screen's on. You have a practice that you use?
No, not really. I just I get up in the morning and just gotta feed the dog because she'll bug me to heck, man, if I don't feed her, and she'll just bark. And so I think I'm trained. I'm trained to take care of her first, and then after that, unfortunately, I like just turning on the news and
Got it.
that just sort of just mellows me out a little bit, though. You know what I mean? But on weekends or long weekends, first thing I'll do after I feed her, I'll take her on a walk, and I really enjoy that first thing in the mornings.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Victor.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
So a lot of what I'm saying about simplicity, you've already actually discovered some of the ways to self-regulate. I would wake up in the morning and I used to write out, I'd wake up and I'd call it a hangover from my dreams. I wouldn't remember what I was dreaming, but there was very definitely a sensation. It might have been, have any of you, had the sensation of waking up on the wrong side of the bed? Well, my brain, my mind cannot stand having an unexplained feeling. So I wake up, I'm in a foul mood. I don't know why. So I just flip through the file system of my mind, of my world. I just flip through days and I say, well, my first wife said this about me, and I can't believe I got a ticket. And this, I got that ticket. That was bullshit, And so then I have something for my mind to attach that feeling to. And by the time I'm out of the shower, I've run this through my mind 20 times. And then I get out. By the time I'm I-25 and all those drivers, my God, and I'm sitting there, and what's happening is that I'm revving myself up for a whole day of being in a bad mood without having any idea that I was doing it to myself. And that's complicated. And unfortunately for me, some of those feelings were so familiar that I would kind of just jump into those. I'll just make stuff up. That's basically what I do. So what I discovered is that when I wake up in the morning, and actually you can't see it here, but I have a spot in my office that I turn, that it's facing the corner. It's very beautiful. I usually have a flower or two. I light a candle, ring the gong. There's the gong. And with the sound of that gong, I've been doing this for 35 years. It's almost like a switch for me. I just come back, I sit down, I go back to my breath, I place my mind on the breath. I want to dive into my bad feeling, but I would say, no, just come back to your breath. And I do this for about 5 or 10 minutes, and all the sensations and feelings will die away. All the hotness of the bad mood, it just melts. I don't chase it with more thinking. I don't rev it up again. And it's like a fresh start. And it's about the simplest thing I can do. And I recognize after, 40 years now, I recognize the symptoms of when I'm about to rev up. And so I very much on purpose let go back into a practice. So I'd like to, this is a little bit of a review from last year, but I'd like to do just about 3 or 4 minutes of that practice It's called Shamatha. It's got a translated from Sanskrit, means peaceful abiding. And the first time I heard that, I got all excited thinking I was going to learn this technique and be just peacefully abiding everywhere. No, it took me about, I don't know, 5-6 years to realize that peaceful abiding means that whatever comes up in our lives, whatever comes up in a way of emotion or a feeling or a thought, we can peacefully abide with it. We can work with anything that comes up, and anything that comes up is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with whatever we experience as a human, but where it gets complicated is when we start chasing that feeling with our stories. So what I'd like to do is practice for just a moment. I'm actually going to ring the gong again. And what I'd like you to do is place your mind on the sensation of the body breathing, and or what Amy does, which is a body scan, which is brilliant. Place your mind on the sensation of whatever part of the body you want. You can place it on the sensation of the body sitting on the chair. You can place it on your feet on the ground, but just keep placing your mind on that sensation. And let's do this for just a couple moments. So that was 2 minutes. I'm curious. Who would like to give me a little feedback as to what you experienced? What's the flavor of connecting your mind and body like that for just a moment?
It's amazing how many different thoughts I can have in 2 minutes. I cannot shut my brain off.
Yeah.
Longer than 2 minutes.
Yes. Victor. I think you might be muted, Victor.
It's amazing how sometimes, well, we don't think about it, but when you think about 2 minutes, it could just seem like to take an eternity.
Yes.
I mean, you know, you could sit, I mean, without even looking at your watch, you go, oh my God, this is really taking it just seems to take a long time, and we sometimes don't really see how long it really does take,
Yeah.
because we're so busy during our day sometimes that just 2 minutes can go fly by. But when you actually sit down and say, I'm gonna take 2 minutes, it seems forever.
Yeah. I teach a lot, and you know, I typically would start us off with 20 minutes. And when I'm in person, you can almost see the signs on the people's faces. Go, ring the gong. You know, it's kind of crazy.
I know.
Claudia, what did you experience?
Well, right now I'm kind of sick.
Oh,
Oh, I found myself about to like pass out. I'm like, whoa, I need to wake up.
okay. All right. Yeah. Yes, Sherry.
I felt like the 2 minutes was long too, but the more I focused on my back, because sitting in this chair, and I finally got a desk that raises, but my back really bothers me sitting in this chair. So, but the more I focus on trying to relax my back, the better it seemed like it got. But maybe that's my mind. I don't know. I don't know.
I hear someone else. Yeah. I go on retreats once in a while, and I'll do what we just did for 1 month, 7 in the morning till 9 at night. And by the end of the month, everything has slowed down. I am so familiar with thoughts, but by the second day, I was on reruns. I thought the same thoughts over and over and over. I got so bored with the day. And so it was one of those things where this is a practice where you learn to be friends with yourself. And I hear somebody's
Yeah, I'm gonna, Dave, I'm gonna reclaim host from you and then I can mute them. Let's see. Okay, perfect. All right, we're good to go. I'll mute them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This practice is a practice of making friends with yourselves. I don't know, that sounds kind of strange thing to say, but I was very critical and judgmental of myself. And growing up days, there was almost a false front. I called myself Stained Glass Dave. This was the image that I put up to the world, thinking I'm dancing and prancing, and it's the most complicated thing I could have possibly have done. But then the thought that there might be something wrong with me made me hold that image up. And it made it very complicated to live a life where you're constantly having to dance and prance for the benefit of others. But the more one gets to know themselves, the more one gets to just absolutely become so familiar with your thoughts, any of them, the good thoughts, the bad thoughts, and make friends with that. And I'm going to use this, let's see, somebody here, I don't know, does Maria Perez have a dog? Maria, unmute yourself. Do you have a dog perchance?
I don't.
You don't. Okay, well, I was just a shot in the dark, but very good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Who has a dog here? All right, Claudia, the one who doesn't feel good. Claudia, how does your dog greet you when you come home?
They're always at the door, wagging their tails, jumping on the door, waiting for me to open it.
Yeah, really excited. All right. Maria, yes.
Well, I don't have a dog, but my granddaughters have a dog, And when I go to their house, it's wonderful. The feeling that you get when that dog greets you, because I think she loves me.
Ah,
And she's, we call her in Spanish, chipilona. She's a spoiled dog with me,
but,
because I'm the grandma.
and that's a lucky dog.
Yeah.
Well, in this practice, when you guys noticed you were thinking and you replaced your mind, you said oh my God, I had 20 million thoughts. But when you noticed you were thinking and you brought your mind back to the sensation of the body breathing or the sensation of your back, the sensation, add a little step in there. Add the step that when you notice you're thinking, you can actually say thinking, but then greet yourself the same way Maria's grand dog does to her. Literally go, greet yourself in a way that you're so happy to see that you're back for the moment, and then place your mind again, and 2 seconds later it'll bolt again. But when you sit there and notice you're thinking and you sit there and go, oh, thinking, just come back, and it will be the friendly greetings that add up in this practice. I actually named my mind Floppy, picturing a golden lab that was the most misbehaved, dog of all time. People asked if it would come back when I called, and I laughed. I can't get it to sit. I can't get it to stay, but I still love the dog, and the dog is always happy to see me. And so that kind of attitude is how we can simplify our lives greatly, but it actually takes quite a bit of practice to do this. Any questions that have come up so far? And I see Crystal's dog right behind her, so there's Crystal. Does your dog greet you in a friendly way?
She sure does, but she's also on her foot, so I get kind of creaky with her.
So, well, what I'm going to do, and I don't know how much time I have, but I'm going to introduce one of the things that you said, Jesse, was you couldn't imagine how many thoughts you had, in 2 minutes. One of the great things about having a mind is that it is very fast. It's one of the great parts of being human is that we actually have a mind that can think. We can place it on problems and fix things and this and that, but it also can get away from us. And when we sit there and start to practice, even for 2 minutes, it was like, oh my gosh, my mind is totally out of control. And in the traditional text, 2,500 years ago, they called this the Waterfall of Thoughts. That, we are so busy and we're going all the time and we're moving and we're sitting there, letting the moment unfold, but we're very busy with it. So to stop and actually start to pay attention to this waterfall of thoughts, it's kind of like watching a stream of cars. It just looks like a stream of cars, but if you sit there and you slow things down, you can actually start picking out an individual car and start to see and be able to follow that through. And a lot of times the image for a good meditation practice is that it's like a bubble. A thought bubble comes up and it just pops and it goes away. Or another image that they've used, the sky is always clear and the sun is always shining above the clouds. So you start to trust the sky completely. And I'm working on ways and for people that I work with addictions, this ability to catch the thought is critical, because if they have the thought, I could really use a drink right now, and it goes into action, they take a drink. But that same present moment that they could, where they have the thought of wanting to drink and come back, then there's a break, there's a little gap. And with practice, we can make that gap bigger. And I was sitting there thinking about how many, oh, who was, you introduced decluttering your mind?
Put number 2.
How does, let's see, how could I say this in a way that makes sense? It doesn't, I've never been able to get rid of thoughts, ever. But I have had the ability to wear them out. I just get tired of them. I sit there and I bring my mind back to the present moment, but I did have a quick glance at the nature of the thought I was having. And then I would just notice that, and then I'd notice it again, and bit by bit, I just started to really realize the flavor of certain thoughts. And you know, it's great being 72 years old. I was out on my early morning walk the other day, and I was a little feisty, and I decided to bring into my mind unvaccinated people. I can't believe they have the, you know, next thing you know, I'm revving myself up about unvaccinated people. And I started laughing. And the one of my lines inside of my own head is, I could have been a contender. So, you know, as an old white guy, I get to have all the fun I want with being crazy. And as soon as I said that, it went away. My wife and I have completely eliminated sarcasm out of our relationship. And both of us, you know, our growing up days, sarcasm, the quick quips, the sort of the funny, sarcastic remarks and everything. We realized that we never knew how they were going to land with each other. And then when I started really paying attention to my own mind, I found out I was incredibly sarcastic with my own internal thoughts. In fact, the tonality of my own mind was sarcastic. Oh, nice, Dave. What were you thinking there? That was smart. You know, what were you, you know, where's your brain there? You know, and just sort of a nonstop aggression towards myself that I had no idea I was doing this until I slowed things down enough to pay attention. So my suggestion on simplicity is give yourself a break. You know, give yourself 5-10 minutes at some point during the day and just simply come back to the present moment as it is. It's always there. It's never going to go away. It's perfect. And I think that was going to be the direction that I took on this first class. I was going to also introduce to you, this is preview of coming attractions. I started having fun with, and now that it's recorded, I have to watch my language. So I just want you guys to know I have an advanced degree from MSUU, and someone will ask me what that is, and it's Make Stuff Up University. It's not what the way I say it. I say it Makes Up University, but my mind's always making stuff up. And we've started, I love this part of me. You know, if I have a headache, for instance, 5 minutes into the headache, I can tell you the approximate size of the tumor and how long I have to live. You know, I can just make stuff up. My wife had a couple red spots on her legs and they were turning red. And we were looking at them and putting cream on them. And her mind went to flesh-eating amoebas, just like that. I mean, and then of course, there's an ability to laugh at making stuff up. We can make stuff up and catch how absurd it is. But at the same time, that ability to notice it lets us come back from it, where it catches us and all of a sudden we're spinning a story that we don't even know we're spinning. That's complicated. And that's what we do. And it's very, and once I've built up a head of steam in one of my stories, it's very difficult not to work with it. I'm going to tell one more story about catching myself. I had a Starbucks cup and I went to Boulder and I was in a bookstore and the person came up to me and said, if you're not going to order anything from our store, we want you to leave. And I was embarrassed. I had people around and I said, oh, I was so frustrated. I went out to my truck and I found out who owned that coffee shop, and I was typing up an email. Oh my God, I was hot, but then I got home and I showed the email to my wife. She burst out laughing. She said, "You're not going to send that, are you?" I said, so we have a 24-hour rule. I can't push send on a hot email for 24 hours. Anyhow, I read it the next morning and I just burst out laughing. It was so bad. I would never send it in a million years. And it was just so happened that 2 days later, I had another meeting that was in that same coffee shop. And I went back and when I ordered my coffee from them, I put a 10 or a 20 into their tip jar. And the guy goes, that's a generous tip. Thank you. And I told him, I said, nah, this is so much cheaper than therapy. I can't believe it. You guys saved me a fortune. So these insights that we get are like gold, a light touch. If I didn't do this a lot, with my own mind, something like that might have led to shame or guilt or all this or that. But as it is, it was just kind of funny. And those insights will continuously simplify our life. And I was telling Jesse just before, I've been lately taking lots of classes that I know are going to be uncomfortable. Classes I know are going to irritate me. And the reason I do this is that I want to find the edge of the world according to Dave. I don't want to be the old guy shaking his cane, telling kids to get off his, blankety blank lawn. And there's a lot of my friends that at my age that's exactly where they've gone. But if I go to these classes where I don't quite understand, it's outside of my realm of understanding, the world gets bigger. And surprisingly enough, it gets simpler. There's just more space for things to happen. Okay, I think I hit my 40 minutes, but I wanted to have a little bit of time, and I'm just really curious about people's own, what halls do you run up and down in your own MSUU? We're all enrolled, by the way. I found out it's a big school. And we're all making stuff up, but it's kind of fun. Now I'll start with Jesse, since you're running this show. What's going on with some of the things I said here today?
I liked that idea of pause, especially the coffee shop thing. I really liked that idea of pause and not reacting, not being so reactive.
Okay. Yes, Mer.
I like that idea too, especially because when you're mad, you're gonna say something that you're gonna regret later. So I like it. I like that too. And sometimes it's hard to do, but we really, really need to work on it.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I'm gonna talk about me. I do.
I tell
But
people,
it's better.
I say that I know this works because I don't have to make amends nearly as much as I used to. Something comes out of my mouth, I don't have to apologize nearly as much because it doesn't get out. So thank you for that. Yeah. Good, Grandma.
I'll go next. Something that you just said too kind of resonated with me that I've been doing for a number of years, especially in my work where I would deal with a lot of contentious issues and the development community and contractors and folks who would get, I guess, not necessarily doing the right thing, or in some cases, I felt like they were being incompetent. So I get really aggravated. But what I would start to do is type out what I wanted to say in an email, and then I'd save it in my draft folder. And then I'd come back to it later and usually just take a couple parts out of it, just the key points, not get into kind of my rant.
Yeah.
But just take the key points, keep all the things that could be taken out of, taken personally by the other folks, and just kind of keep it to, here's this is what needs to happen, and just weed out the other stuff. So once I had kind of a time to calm down or refocus and then come back to it and reread, and it's like, okay, let's revisit this and simple it down and make it, where it was actually more productive.
Yeah, yeah. There's a part of me that I named, part of my mind that I named it Mr. Snarky. And Mr. Snarky is hot. Oh my gosh. You say something new to me and Mr. Snarky has a comment inside my mind. And yeah, I'm seeing some heads nodding. But my life has gone much better since I don't give Mr. Snarky a speaking role. Mr. Snarky with a speaking role gets me in trouble. But at the same time, that part that's snarky kind of wakes me up. It's kind of a bell ringing in the background. I'm up against something I don't quite understand or know, or this or that. My Western mind isn't accepting some of this stuff that I'm reading. And so it's also something really valuable for me to pay attention to. So when Mr. Snarky, and then occasionally I'll let Mr. Snarky, and my wife has Mrs. Snarky, and we occasionally let the two of them out, and oh my God, it's just ridiculous. We're sitting there laughing and this and that. So there's ways to work with that part of us, but it's a really valuable part of being human, if that makes sense to people. All right. Goodness. Anybody else? Yes.
About 4 months ago, I live in a cul-de-sac, and I parked on the street. And the house had a side fence, which was not a legal entrance or anything. And this family that just moved in there, they didn't like me parking there. So one morning they dragged my car. They dragged it for like about 50 feet because I measured it. And they really ruined the front end. The police was called. Make a short story. Instead of going to court, they did eventually pay me $100 a month to get it fixed. So instead of me being angry and hateful for these people, even though they did damage on my car, and even though they paid, instead of being angry, since I work for social services and some of the values they have here, as the man came by to pay me, I took the time to make conversation, and I was helping, since they were new to Colorado from California. Next thing you know, I was here assisting them, helping them, directing them where they could go ahead and get their taxes, where you could go ahead and get Medicaid, where you could go ahead and get other things. So I turned that anger, that hateful, that resentment I had, and I turned it around to make my life better, because we live in the cul-de-sac, we're going to see them more often. And it just made the whole relationship better.
Yeah, yeah.
It made a whole world of difference. So, and everything else like that. And it's really worked out for me. It really worked out for me. It was better for myself because I didn't frown. I didn't snarl every time I went by their house. All of a sudden I was at peace.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Decluttering your mind, being right and having my hand up to my forehead was just the way I lived my life. I was a victim to everybody and everything. And learning how to do this, like notice I'm thinking exactly what you did with this is really helpful. Yeah, it's that is a brilliant way to simplify your life and just constantly. And I want to be miserable, I think of myself. And if I want to be happy, I think of others. And it's been a formula that's gotten, quite easy. So, okay. Well, I didn't know exactly what the timing was on this thing. I can go on, but I'm sitting there looking at the time frame. I think last time I was supposed to stop at 12:30 and here it's 12:45. So we're doing, I'm only 15 minutes over, you guys.
That's okay. All right, everybody. Yeah, as we wrap this up for today, any last final things? And then we'll hopefully see everyone next week.
And if there's anything you want me to address, shoot it to Jesse and I'll work with those things. That would be fun. Yeah, here's something that you guys, kind of like the Victor story, how he worked that out. That was brilliant. So, all right, everybody, one more, be friendly. Look forward to seeing you next week.
All right.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.